Peace never lasts for men who've ruled in shadows. 3 years after Jinwoo Park disappeared into a quiet life, a single photograph changes everything. His daughter's face, posted innocently online by her school, reaches the wrong eyes. And when a black car appears outside their home at midnight, Jinwoo realizes the truth. You can leave the Empire, but the Empire never leaves you. Now, with his family's safety hanging by a thread and old enemies closing in, the man who traded power for love must decide. Can a reformed crime lord protect his children without becoming the monster he left behind? This is episode 2. When the past refuses to stay buried, and a father's love becomes the most dangerous weapon of all. 3 years of peace ended with a school picture. James Park, the name still felt foreign on his tongue, stood in his classroom after hours, grading papers under fluorescent lights. His phone buzzed. A text from Amara. "Did you see Arya's class photo online? She looks so beautiful." He smiled, opening the school's website. There she was, his daughter, front row, grinning with missing teeth and wild confidence. The photo was public, tagged with the school name and location. His blood went cold. Years of survival instincts screamed warnings his peaceful life had dulled. He immediately called Marcus, the only person from his old world he still contacted, using encrypted channels and careful protocols. "Tell me you're being paranoid," Marcus answered. The school posted photos online, full names, location tags. Silence. Then, "I'll scrub what I can, but boss, James, if it's already out there, check the networks. See if anyone's watching." On it. Jinwoo drove home faster than he should have, his hands tight on the wheel. 3 years. 3 beautiful, ordinary years of teaching history and coaching Little League and being nobody special. 3 years of tucking his children into bed without checking windows for snipers. He'd been a fool to think it could last forever. Amara was making dinner when he arrived, humming softly while Arya set the table. David and Michael were doing homework at the kitchen counter. Normal. Perfect. Fragile. "You're home early," Amara said, then saw his face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Maybe nothing." He forced a smile for the children. "Just missed you guys." But that night, after the children slept, he told her everything. "The photo's been shared 40 times, he said quietly. "Most are harmless, parents, relatives, but I can't shake this feeling. Jinwoo, we've been safe for 3 years. Maybe it's really over. Or maybe we've just been lucky." She touched his face, trying to soothe the fear she saw there. "We can't live in terror forever. That's not a life. Neither is being dead." At midnight, his phone buzzed. "Marcus, you need to see this." The attached image showed a screenshot from a dark web forum. Arya's school photo. And beneath it, a single line in Korean. "Found him." Jinwoo's hands shook. "How long do we have?" "Unknown. Could be days, could be hours, could be nothing. Just talk." "We both know it's not nothing." He looked at Amara sleeping peacefully beside him and felt the weight of every choice he'd ever made. He'd thought love could save him from his past. But the past wasn't interested in salvation. Only in collection. The black car appeared 3 days later. Jinwoo was walking the children home from school when he spotted it. Expensive, tinted windows, idling 2 blocks away. His old instincts roared to life. He kept his pace casual, but his mind raced through scenarios, exits, defensive positions. "Dad, why are you squeezing my hand so hard?" David asked. He loosened his grip immediately. "Sorry, buddy. Just thinking." The car followed them at a distance, not hiding, wanting to be seen, a message. They made it home safely, but Jinwoo knew safety was an illusion now. That night, after Amara put the children to bed, he made the call he'd hoped he'd never make. "I need a favor," he told Marcus. "The kind we used to specialize in." "What kind?" "The kind where people disappear before they can hurt what's mine." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Boss, James, you know what you're asking? You've been clean for 3 years. You go back to that world, even for a second, and it won't let you go again. Then I'll be careful." "There's no careful with this. You either are or you aren't. You can't be half a crime lord." Jinwoo watched through the window, as Amara read bedtime stories to their children. Arya's laughter drifted through the walls. David's serious questions. Michael's quiet observations. I can be a father protecting his family. That's all I need to be. And if protecting them means becoming what you were, then I become it, temporarily. Nothing's temporary in our world, you know that. But Jinwoo had already decided. The car returned the next morning, and the morning after that. Always watching, always waiting. On the fourth day, Jinwoo didn't drop the children at school. Instead, he called in sick, kept them home, and told Amara the truth she'd been dreading. We need to run again. Her face crumpled. No. Jinwoo, we built a life here. The children have friends, school, stability. They'll have a grave if we stay. You don't know that. I know enough. He showed her the photos Marcus had sent, surveillance shots of their house, the children's school, even Amara's hospital where she worked as a nurse. They're not just watching, they're studying, planning. Who? Chen's still in prison. Chen has sons, and they have long memories. He pulled her close. I'm sorry. I thought we'd escaped. I thought, don't apologize for trying to give us normal. She pulled back, steel in her eyes. But if we run smart. No half measures. No looking back. That night, they packed in silence. 3 suitcases. Essential documents. Cash Jinwoo had kept hidden for emergencies. The children sensed something wrong but didn't ask questions. They'd learned early that sometimes parents had worried faces, and you just had to trust them. At 2 a.m., Jinwoo loaded the car. Marcus had arranged a safe house 6 states away. New identities were already waiting. They could disappear again, start over, keep running forever. But as Jinwoo carried sleeping Arya to the car, he realized something. He was tired of running. Tired of looking over his shoulder. Tired of teaching his children to be afraid. Tired of letting his past dictate his future. He settled Arya in her car seat and made a decision that would change everything. Change of plans, he told Amara. What? We're not running. Not anymore. Amara stared at him like he'd lost his mind. What do you mean we're not running? I mean, I'm ending this. Tonight. Jinwoo, you can't just... These are dangerous people. You left that world. You're a teacher now, not a... I'm a father, and fathers protect their children. He cupped her face gently. Take the kids to Marcus's safe house. I'll handle this and meet you there. Handle this how? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. She saw it in his eyes. The crime lord she'd fallen in love with. The dangerous man he'd buried beneath 3 years of normal life. No. Her voice shook. You promised me you were done with that life. I am done. This is just cleanup. Cleanup that might get you killed. Or cleanup that keeps you alive. He kissed her forehead. I won't become what I was. But I'll use what I know. There's a difference. She wanted to argue. He saw it in her face. But she also knew him well enough to know when his mind was made. Promise me you'll come back. I promise. Promise me you won't lose yourself doing whatever you're about to do. That promise was harder. I'll try. By 3 a.m., Amara and the children were on the road to safety. Jinwoo stood in their empty house, phone in hand, and made a call to a number he'd memorized but never dialed. This is Chen's son, a voice answered in Korean. I was wondering when you'd call. You've been following my family. We've been reminding you that debts don't expire. Your testimony put my father away. Now you pay the price. Name it. Laughter, cold, cruel. Your empire. We want what you built. The contacts, the roots, the connections, everything you handed to the FBI, we want it back. And you're going to help us rebuild. And if I refuse? Your daughter has a beautiful smile. Would be a shame if she lost it. Jinwoo's hand tightened on the phone. This was the moment. The choice between who he'd been and who he'd become. Between violence and surrender. Between protecting his family and protecting his soul. Where do we meet? He asked quietly. The old warehouse, Pier 17. You remember it. He did. He'd killed 3 men there once. Another lifetime ago. 1 hour. Come alone. Jinwoo hung up and stared at his reflection in the darkened window. The teacher was gone. The husband, the father, the man who'd chosen peace, all gone. In their place stood someone older, colder, infinitely more dangerous. He opened a hidden panel in the basement and retrieved things he'd hoped never to touch again. A gun, clean and loaded. A knife, perfectly balanced. And a phone with one contact. Marcus. I need you at Pier 17, full team, non-lethal if possible. And if not possible, then we do what we have to do. The warehouse at Pier 17 stood like a monument to Jinwoo's past. Rusted metal, broken windows, the smell of salt and decay. He'd owned this place once, used it for meetings that ended in blood more often than handshakes. Now it was abandoned, forgotten, the perfect place for ghosts to meet. Jinwoo arrived at 4 a.m., the city still sleeping, unaware of the violence brewing in its shadows. He parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, every sense heightened, every instinct screaming. This was the world he knew, the dance of predator and prey, the careful calculation of threat and response. Marcus and his team were already in position. 5 men Jinwoo trusted with his life, hidden in the darkness, watching. They communicated through earpieces, voices crackling softly. 3 vehicles, Marcus reported. 12 hostiles, maybe more inside. Boss, this is a setup. They're not here to negotiate. I know. Then why are we here? Because they threatened my daughter, and I need them to understand what that means. Jinwoo walked through the warehouse's main entrance, hands visible, weapon concealed. The space opened into a vast emptiness. Concrete floors stained with history, metal beams casting shadows in the dim light filtering through broken skylights. Chen's son waited in the center, surrounded by armed men. He was younger than Jinwoo expected, maybe 28, handsome, wearing his father's arrogance like an inherited suit. This was Minjun Chen, the eldest son, the one who'd sworn vengeance when his father was arrested. Jinwoo Park, Minjun said, his English perfect but accented. Or should I call you James? The high school teacher? He laughed, and his men joined in. My father told me stories about you. The Korean ghost, they called you. The man who could end wars with a whisper. And now look at you, hiding in suburbia, grading papers, pretending to be normal. Jinwoo stopped 10 feet away, hands still visible. I didn't come here to reminisce. No, you came because I found your weakness. Your wife, your children. Minjun pulled out his phone, showing photos. Arya at school, David at baseball practice, Michael at the library, Amara shopping for groceries. Beautiful family. Would be tragic if something happened to them. It would be. Jinwoo's voice was calm, almost gentle. Which is why I'm here to make sure nothing does. And how will you do that? You're outnumbered, outgunned. You gave up your empire, your power, your protection. You're nobody now. That's what I thought too. Jinwoo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Turns out I was wrong. Something in his tone made Minjun hesitate. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the difference between power and strength. You think power comes from guns and men and territory. That's what your father thought too. That's why he's in prison. My father is in prison because you betrayed him. Your father is in prison because he mistook fear for respect. Because he thought an empire built on violence could last forever. Jinwoo took a step forward. I made the same mistake. But I learned something in the last 3 years. Real power, the kind that actually matters, comes from having something worth protecting. And right now, you're threatening the only thing I care about. Minjun gestured, and his men raised their weapons. 12 guns pointed at Jinwoo's chest. Big words for a man about to die. See, that's where you made your mistake. Jinwoo's voice dropped to the dangerous whisper his enemies used to fear. You assumed I came here alone. The lights went out. In the darkness, chaos erupted. Marcus and his team moved like shadows, trained, efficient, brutal when necessary. Non-lethal takedowns, just as Jinwoo had ordered. Rubber bullets and stun weapons. The goal wasn't murder. It was message. Jinwoo moved through the confusion with muscle memory older than his peaceful life. He reached Minjun before the young man could react. disarming him with practiced ease, pressing him against a concrete pillar. "Listen carefully," Jinwoo said, his forearm across Minjun's throat. "I left my old life because I wanted to be better. But don't mistake restraint for weakness. I know things. Things that could destroy your entire organization. Routes, contacts, dirty cops, politicians on your payroll. I documented everything before I disappeared. And if anything happens to my family, anything at all of it goes to the FBI, Interpol, every law enforcement agency that wants you dead." Minjun struggled, but Jinwoo pressed harder. "You're bluffing." "Am I? Your shipment coming through Vancouver next week? The one hidden in furniture containers? I know about it. Your deal with the Russians in Brighton Beach? I know about that too. Your father's money laundered through that art gallery in Soho? I can prove it." Fear flickered in Minjun's eyes. "How?" "Because I built half those systems. I know every weakness, every vulnerability, every secret your organization tried to hide." Jinwoo leaned closer. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my family alone. You're going to forget I exist. And in exchange, I'll forget what I know. We walk away. Both of us. Clean. And if I refuse, then I don't just destroy your organization. I destroy your father's legacy. I make sure the Chen name becomes synonymous with failure. Every family you've ever wronged, every enemy your father made, I'll give them everything they need to tear you apart. And then, when you have nothing left, when you're broken and desperate, I'll visit you one last time. And I'll make sure you understand what happens when you threaten my children." The lights came back on. Minjun's men were on the ground, disarmed, zip-tied. Marcus stood with his team, weapons ready but not aimed, controlled, professional. Jinwoo released Minjun and stepped back. "This is mercy. This is me choosing not to be what I was. But mercy has limits. Test them, and you'll find out what I'm still capable of." Minjun rubbed his throat, pride and rage warring across his face. He was young enough to want revenge, but smart enough to recognize a losing position. Your father made choices. He's paying for them. You can make different choices. Better ones." Jinwoo's voice softened slightly. "I'm not your enemy, Minjun. I'm just a man trying to protect his family. Walk away. Build something that doesn't require blood. Trust me when I say the other path only leads to prison or death." For a long moment, Minjun said nothing. Then, "How do I know you won't go to the FBI anyway? Because unlike your father, I keep my word. You leave us alone, I leave you alone. Simple as that." Minjun looked at his defeated men, at Marcus's team, at Jinwoo standing calm and untouchable in the middle of it all. The young man was calculating, processing, trying to find an angle. "I need proof," Minjun said finally. "Proof that you have what you say you have." Jinwoo pulled out his phone and showed him a single document. Shipping manifests, dates, locations, names. Enough to confirm he wasn't bluffing, not enough to be useful without the rest. Satisfied? Minjun's jaw clenched. "If I agree, if I walk away, what's to stop you from using this information anyway? The same thing that stopped me for 3 years. I don't want to be in this world anymore. I just want to be left alone." Jinwoo met his eyes. "But I will burn everything to the ground before I let anyone hurt my family. Believe that if you believe nothing else." The standoff stretched, taut as wire. Then Minjun nodded once, sharp, bitter, but final. "Fine. We walk away. But if you ever, I won't, as long as you don't." Minjun gestured to his men. "Let them up." Marcus hesitated, looking to Jinwoo for confirmation. Jinwoo nodded. They released Chen's men, who gathered their weapons slowly, watching for treachery that didn't come. As they filed out, Minjun paused at the door. "You really gave it all up? The power, the money, everything?" "Everything. For what? A normal life? Teaching kids history? For a real life, there's a difference." Minjun shook his head, unable to comprehend. "My father always said you were the smartest of us. I thought he was wrong. Maybe he wasn't." Then he was gone, and Jinwoo stood in the empty warehouse, adrenaline finally fading, hands starting to shake. Marcus approached carefully. "You okay, boss? Don't call me that anymore." "Old habits." Marcus smiled slightly. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen you do." "Probably both." Jinwoo holstered his weapon, still unfired, thank God. "Did we get clean footage?" "Everything. Audio, video, the whole confrontation. Insurance, just like you wanted." "Good. If he goes back on his word, we have proof we showed restraint. And if he doesn't go back on his word, then maybe, just maybe, we finally get to be free." They left the warehouse as dawn broke over the city, painting the sky in shades of hope and possibility. Jinwoo drove straight to the safe house, his heart pounding with need to see his family, to hold them, to confirm they were safe. Amara met him at the door, searching his face for answers. "Is it over?" "I think so. Maybe. I hope so." She pulled him inside, and the children rushed over, 3 small bodies crashing into him with the force of love. He held them tight, breathing in their innocence, their trust, their absolute belief that their father could keep them safe. And for the first time in days, he believed it too. The weeks after the confrontation passed in careful silence. Jinwoo waited for retaliation that didn't come, watched for black cars that never appeared, monitored the networks through Marcus for any sign that Minjun had changed his mind. But there was nothing. Just blessed, terrifying silence. "Maybe he actually listened," Marcus said during one of their encrypted calls. "The Chen organization's been quiet. No moves against you, no chatter about revenge. They're focusing on their own operations. Or they're planning something we can't see. Boss, James, you can't live your whole life waiting for the other shoe to drop. Watch me." But Amara wouldn't let him retreat into paranoia. She saw the way he checked windows constantly, the way he tensed at unexpected sounds, the way he barely slept. One night, a month after the warehouse, she found him on the porch at 3 a.m. watching the empty street. "Come to bed," she said softly. "Soon." "Jinwoo." She sat beside him, taking his hand. "We're safe. You made us safe. But if you can't believe that, if you can't let go of the fear, then they've already won." I just keep thinking, what if I missed something? What if there's an angle I didn't see? Then we'll handle it, together, like we've handled everything else. She turned his face toward hers. "But you can't protect us by never sleeping. You can't keep us safe by making yourself sick with worry. The children need their father present, not just physically here, but actually with them." She was right. He knew she was right. But 3 years of peace had been shattered so easily. How could he trust that it wouldn't happen again? "I don't know how to stop being afraid for you," he admitted. "You don't stop. You just learn to live alongside it. You feel the fear and choose joy anyway." She smiled. "That's what you taught me when you walked away from your empire. Now, I'm teaching it back to you." Slowly, carefully, Jinwoo began to rebuild his life. He returned to teaching, though he varied his routes and remained vigilant. Amara went back to nursing, though Jinwoo had Marcus run background checks on every new colleague she mentioned. The children returned to school, and Jinwoo volunteered for every field trip, every school event, every opportunity to be present. David noticed the change. "Dad, you're always here now. Is that okay?" "Yeah, it's good. You seem less sad." "I was sad?" David shrugged with that too-old wisdom. "You looked at us like you were trying to memorize us, like you thought we might disappear. You don't do that as much anymore." Jinwoo pulled his son close, marveling at his perception. "I'm working on it, buddy." 3 months after the confrontation, something unexpected happened. Jinwoo received a letter, handwritten, no return address, postmarked from Korea. His first instinct was to destroy it, to call Marcus, to prepare for new threats. But curiosity won. He opened it carefully, scanning for danger. It was written in Korean, the calligraphy beautiful and precise. "Jinwoo Park, I am writing from prison, where I have had much time to think. My son tells me of your meeting. He tells me you could have killed him but chose mercy instead. He tells me you spoke of better choices. I have made many mistakes in my life. I built an empire on fear, just as you said. I hurt many people. I justified it all as necessary, as business, as the only way to survive in our world. But now, sitting in this cell, I see the truth. I was afraid. Afraid of weakness, afraid of vulnerability, afraid that without power, I was nothing. You walked away from what I could never leave. You chose family over empire. For years I told myself this made you weak. But my son's words haunt me. He had me at his mercy and let me live. What kind of man does that? A strong one. A truly strong one. I write this to say, I will ensure my organization leaves you and your family in peace. Not because I fear you, though I should, but because you showed my son something I never could, that there is another way to live. That power without purpose is just noise. I cannot undo my past, but perhaps I can give you the future you chose. Consider this my apology, inadequate as it is. Live well, Jinwoo Park. Teach your children to be better than we were. Richard Chen. Jinwoo read the letter 3 times, searching for manipulation, for hidden threats, for the trap. But all he found was the rambling reflection of an old man facing consequences. He showed Amara that night, and she cried reading it. Do you think he means it? I think prison changes people, sometimes for the better. And Minjun? According to Marcus, he's been restructuring the organization, moving away from violent operations, focusing on legitimate businesses. Maybe our conversation actually stuck. Or maybe, Amara said softly, you gave them what no one else ever did. A choice. A real one. That possibility sat with Jinwoo for days. He'd spent so long believing that people in his world couldn't change, that the darkness was permanent, that once you chose that life, you were trapped forever. But he'd changed. He'd walked away. He'd chosen love over power, family over empire, hope over certainty. Maybe others could too. 6 months after the warehouse confrontation, life had settled into a new rhythm. Jinwoo still had nightmares sometimes, dreams of losing his family, of his past devouring his present. But they came less frequently now. And when he woke, gasping, Amara was there, solid and real, reminding him that love had won. The children were thriving. David had joined the robotics club and talked endlessly about engineering. Michael had discovered a talent for painting, his quiet nature translating into stunning artwork. And Arya, fierce, brilliant Arya, had decided she wanted to be a lawyer when she grew up, to help people who can't help themselves. Jinwoo had smiled when she announced this. That's a wonderful goal, sweetheart. Is it true you used to be important? Before you were a teacher? The question came out of nowhere, catching both him and Amara off guard. They'd been careful never to discuss his past in detail, offering only vague explanations about Daddy's old job when the children asked why they'd moved, why they'd changed their names. What makes you ask that? Jinwoo deflected gently. David found old photos in the basement. You looked different. Scary, kind of. And there were other men in suits, and everyone looked serious. Jinwoo exchanged glances with Amara. They'd known this conversation would come eventually. The children were getting older, more curious, more aware that their father's past held shadows. I did work a different job, Jinwoo said carefully. Before I was a teacher, I worked in business, international business. It was stressful and sometimes dangerous, and I wasn't happy doing it. So you quit? Yes, because I realized that being successful doesn't matter if you're not with the people you love. Arya considered this seriously. Was it hard to quit? Very hard. Probably the hardest thing I've ever done. But you did it anyway. Because you wanted to be with us more than you wanted to be important. Exactly. She hugged him suddenly, fiercely. I'm glad you chose us. Me too, baby. Every single day. That conversation stayed with Jinwoo. His children would eventually learn the full truth. Maybe not all the details, but the shape of it. They'd have to decide for themselves what kind of man their father was, whether his past disqualified him from his present. He hoped they'd see what he was trying to see, that people could change, that choices mattered more than history, that love was stronger than legacy. On the 1-year anniversary of the warehouse confrontation, Jinwoo took his family camping. Something normal, something peaceful, something that would have been impossible in his old life. They set up tents in a state park, roasted marshmallows, told stories under the stars. As the children slept in their tent and he and Amara sat by the dying fire, he felt something he'd never quite managed before. Contentment. "What are you thinking?" Amara asked, her head on his shoulder. "That I'm grateful. For all of it. The fear. The running. The hard choices. Because they led us here. No regrets? About my old life? 1,000 regrets. About leaving it? Not one." She kissed him softly. "I'm proud of you. For everything you've done to keep us safe. For everything you've sacrificed to be the man they need. They made me that man. You made me that man. I was just smart enough to let you." That night, Jinwoo slept without nightmares for the first time in months. And when he woke to his children's laughter and the smell of campfire breakfast, he realized something profound. He'd spent 20 years building an empire that everyone feared. But in 3 years, he'd built a family that everyone loved. And there was no comparison which one mattered more. 2 years after the confrontation at Pier 17, Jinwoo stood in his classroom watching his students debate the ethics of revolution. They were passionate, idealistic, convinced they could change the world if given the chance. He used to think like that too. Used to believe that power was the answer to every problem. Now he knew better. "Mr. Park," one student asked, "do you think people can really change? Like, fundamentally change who they are?" The class waited for his answer. Jinwoo thought about the crime lord he'd been, the teacher he'd become, the father he was still learning to be. "I think people can choose to change," he said carefully. "But it's not easy. It requires sacrifice, courage, and usually a reason bigger than yourself. Most people never find that reason. But when they do, they're capable of remarkable transformation." After class, he found a note on his desk. "Faculty meeting, 3 p.m., principal's office." Jinwoo's old instincts flared. Unexpected summons, potential threats. But he pushed them down. Not everything was danger. Sometimes a meeting was just a meeting. Except this time it wasn't. Principal Morrison was waiting with someone Jinwoo didn't recognize. A woman in her 40s, professional, carrying a folder. "FBI," his instincts whispered, though she hadn't identified herself. "Mr. Park, this is Agent Sarah Chen," Morrison said nervously. "She has some questions for you." Jinwoo's blood ran cold. "Chen, same last name. Coincidence? Or—" "We're not related," Agent Chen said, reading his expression. "Though Richard Chen is why I'm here." Jinwoo sat carefully, every muscle tense despite his outward calm. "I'm listening. Richard Chen died in prison last week. Heart attack. But before he died, he made arrangements. Specifically, arrangements concerning you and your family." "What kind of arrangements?" Agent Chen opened her folder. "He left a recorded testimony, hours of it. Names, dates, operations, everything the FBI needed to dismantle his organization completely. He also left a letter specifically stating that you and your family were to be left alone, that anyone who violated this would be betraying his final wishes." Jinwoo processed this information slowly. Chen had kept his word. Even in death, he'd tried to protect them. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because his testimony mentioned you. Not in a way that implicates you. He was very careful about that. But he spoke about why he cooperated. He said, and I quote, "Jinwoo Park showed my son mercy when he could have shown violence. He chose a different path when we all thought there was only one way to live. Perhaps it's time I made a different choice too. I don't understand. What do you want from me?" Agent Chen leaned forward. "The FBI has been tracking you since you entered witness protection. We know you've stayed clean. We also know you could have returned to your old life a dozen times but chose not to. That kind of sustained change is rare, almost unheard of. I had good reasons to change. Your family, we know, and that's why I'm here." She pulled out another document. "Richard Chen's testimony has created a power vacuum. His organization is fragmenting. Some members want to go legitimate. Others want to return to traditional operations. It's chaos. And chaos in that world tends to spill into innocent lives." Jinwoo's jaw tightened. "If you're asking me to get involved, I'm not. I'm telling you that the FBI is using Chen's testimony to offer deals to other organizations. Get out of the life, cooperate with us, receive immunity and protection. It's a first-of-its-kind program. And this concerns me how? Because you're proof it works. You walked away and survived. You built a real life. We want to use your story, not your name, not identifying details, but your journey, to encourage others that there's a way out. Jinwoo sat back, stunned. You want me to be some kind of example? Not publicly, just in conversations with people considering the program. Would you be willing to talk to them? Anonymously, safely, just to share your experience? He thought about Minjun Chen, young and arrogant, so convinced that power was the only way. He thought about all the others like him, trapped in a cycle of violence because they couldn't imagine anything different. I need to discuss this with my wife. Of course. Take your time. That night, Jinwoo told Amara everything. She listened quietly, her hand in his, processing the implications. What do you want to do? She asked finally. Part of me wants to say no. To keep our heads down, stay invisible, never risk exposure. And the other part? The other part thinks about all the people trapped in that world, thinking they have no choice. Maybe I could help them see there's another way. Amara was quiet for a long time. Then, do you remember what you told Arya? About choosing us over being important? Yes. This isn't about being important. This is about helping people who are where you used to be. That's not ego. That's compassion. She squeezed his hand. If it's safe, if the FBI can really protect our anonymity, I think you should do it. Even if it means talking about my past. Your past is part of who you are. Not all of who you are, but part. Maybe it's time to use that past to help create different futures. Jinwoo met with Agent Chen again the following week. They established strict protocols. Anonymous meetings, no names, no identifying information. He would speak with people considering the FBI's exit program, sharing his experience, answering questions, offering hope. The first meeting was with a man in his 30s, built like a fighter, eyes hard with experience. He reminded Jinwoo of himself at that age, all edges, no softness, convinced that strength meant invulnerability. They tell me you got out, the man said, skepticism evident. That you have a normal life now. I don't believe it. I don't need you to believe it. I just need you to know it's possible. How? How do you just walk away from everything? Jinwoo told him. About Amara. About discovering he had children. About the moment he realized power meant nothing compared to love. About the fear and the struggle and the constant work of staying out. But don't you miss it? The man asked. The respect, the power, the feeling of being untouchable. I miss the certainty. I miss always knowing my place in the world. But what I have now, a wife who loves me, children who trust me, a life that's actually mine, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Even on bad days? Especially on bad days. Because bad days in a real life are better than good days in a prison built from your own choices. The man left without committing to anything. But Jinwoo saw something shift in his eyes. A possibility. A question. Maybe. Over the next year, Jinwoo spoke with 17 people considering the exit program. Some took the deal. Some didn't. But each conversation reminded him of his own journey, of how far he'd come, of why every sacrifice had been worth it. His children grew older, more curious about their father's past. When David turned 11, he asked directly, Dad, were you a criminal? Jinwoo and Amara had prepared for this question. They'd agreed on honesty, age-appropriate, but truthful. Yes, Jinwoo said simply. Before you were born, I made very bad choices. I hurt people. I broke the law. I built a life on fear and violence. David absorbed this seriously. And then what? And then I learned that your mother was pregnant, that I was going to be a father. And I realized I didn't want my children to grow up in that world. So I left. I helped the police arrest bad people. And in exchange, they gave us new identities and a chance to start over. Was it hard? The hardest thing I've ever done. Do you regret it? Your old life? Jinwoo pulled his son close. I regret the harm I caused. I regret the time I wasted. But I don't regret where it led me, because it led me to you, to your brother and sister, to this life, and that makes every hard moment worth it. David hugged him tightly. I'm glad you chose us. Me too, son. Every single day. That conversation was harder than facing Chen's organization. But it was also more important. Because his children needed to know the truth. That their father wasn't perfect. That he'd made terrible mistakes. But that he'd chosen to change. On the 5th anniversary of leaving his old life, Jinwoo took his family back to the park where he'd first spent time with them as their father. The children were older now, 10 years old, tall and confident, and so beautifully themselves. This is where it really started, he told Amara, as they watched the triplets play. Where I decided I wanted to be their father, more than I wanted to be powerful. You are powerful, Amara said, just differently now. What do you mean? You changed yourself. You changed our lives. You're helping other people change theirs. That's real power, the kind that actually makes the world better. He kissed her softly, gratefully. How did I ever get lucky enough to find you? You didn't find me. I found you. And I saw past the crime lord to the man underneath who wanted to be good. She smiled. I just gave you permission to be that man. That night, after the children were asleep, Jinwoo stood in their backyard under the stars. He thought about the empire he'd built and destroyed. About the people he'd hurt and the ones he'd saved. About the journey from darkness into light. His phone buzzed. A text from Agent Chen. Another candidate wants to talk. Says he heard about you from someone you met last year. He's ready to try. Thank you for this. Jinwoo smiled. This was his empire now. Not built on fear, but on hope. Not ruled through violence, but through example. Not measured in power, but in lives changed for the better. He'd been a crime lord once, feared and respected and completely empty inside. Now he was a father, a husband, a teacher, a man who'd chosen redemption over revenge, love over legacy, family over everything. And somewhere in the distance between who he'd been and who he'd become, he'd discovered the truth his old life had hidden. Real power wasn't about controlling others. It was about controlling yourself. About choosing goodness when darkness would be easier. About building something that mattered more than monuments to ego. He'd built an empire once, and it had meant nothing. Now he'd built a life, and it meant everything. Jinwoo went inside, locked the door, and climbed into bed beside the woman who'd saved him from himself. His children slept safely down the hall. His future stretched ahead, uncertain but filled with possibility. And for the first time in his entire life, Jinwoo Park, teacher, father, reformed criminal, was exactly where he was meant to be. Home. The end.